Okay, we have Laurel and Gerard. Dom Skeet. Did I say that correctly?
Good.
I'll send the spelling. So the reason I wanted to talk with you all is because your situation, your story is very powerful, because there are people every day who have a stroke or some type of damage that happens to their brain that affects them, and they don't know what to do. And you have been through so many different things. So I'd love for you to start by just telling your story of what life was like in January of 2025.
No, 2024.
2024, pre-stroke, and then what happened?
Well, we should probably back up to life before he retired, because
Yes.
he was a church history professor at a large university, and did a lot of writing and a lot of reading and a lot of research. His favorite place, in fact, when we thought about coming to Tennessee, he says, no, we can't move there. I said, well, why not? My parents were down here and needed help. He says, because they don't have a university library that I can go to. It was, just impossible. However, it turned out fine, because so much is on the internet these days that he can still do his research from anywhere.
Very true.
So,
What did you find? Are you getting your books?
Yeah, what was I doing before? Before I was, writing, research, doing whatever, doing tours to Europe and whatever. And I accomplished there a book that has been now translated into 4 different languages.
Wow.
It
turn it so they can see.
Yes.
and that is the foundations of this day
Seventh-day Adventist Message and
message and mission. It was a special request from my professor. He wanted me to make this clear what this organization was.
Yes.
In there.
When did you write this book?
This I wrote in 1977.
Wow.
I started in 1971. It took me about 5 years. And it has now been translated into
4 languages.
Chinese,
Oh, they're Chinese.
in Korean,
Dutch,
in Dutch,
Portuguese.
Portuguese, and German.
In English. That's
And
many languages.
English, yeah. And
Wow.
it has been a very helpful book to clarify what this organization
Yes.
stands for, and that has been a tremendous blessing.
So your life as a researcher, a professor, an author, tell me about when that changed. When you retired, what that was like.
Okay, when I retired, I continued, especially with a commentary
He's been working on
on the book of
Daniel.
Daniel, a commentary of the prophecies of Daniel and whatever. And I was working there for about 10 years on that. And however, the problem was that I was finished with this, and then the stroke took place.
January 1,
January 1,
2024.
yeah.
And,
And I had just completed this commentary
Wow.
on the book of Daniel.
What was that like? What was the stroke like?
Huh.
What do you remember from it?
See, you can better remember that than I do, because I thought there was nothing the problem within me. But see,
well, we sat down to have our evening devotions, and we both read off of our phones, read the Bible off of our phones. And so I helped him find it, and then he prayed, and then he started scrolling instead of reading. And so I said, no, you have to read. And he had lost it again, so I found it again, and then he prayed again. 6 times this happened, And I said, this is not normal. And so our son-in-law is a neurologist, and I called him up and I said, this is what's happening. And he said, Mom, get him to the emergency room as soon as you can. Call the ambulance. But do you think I could talk him into going? He was fine, everything's fine. I said, you're not fine. And he says, I'm fine. And I said, well, how about if we drive? If I drive you down there, will you get in the car? Yes, I'll do that. Thank you, Jesus. So he got in the car, and I think that was really better because ambulance takes a long time to get to us and then
That's
down.
Right.
And so I just sped down the hill. We live up on a mountain above a small town. And so we got in there. He walked in on his own legs and didn't have to use a wheelchair, and told the front desk, I think he's having a stroke, and they whisked him right back. And sure enough, he was. But then if you're in a certain, I think it's a 3-hour window or something, you can get a certain very powerful anticoagulant that bursts the clots in your brain. And this is something that's really, really important. So knowing when your stroke starts is important. But the problem is, 10 years before, he had another stroke, and it was what did they call a hemorrhagic or a bleeding stroke. And so they had to find out whether it was a bleeding stroke or whether it was a clot stroke. I'm just using my kind of terms. Sorry.
This is good. It's helpful.
And so they did a CT scan, found out it was not a hemorrhagic stroke, and so they gave him this very powerful anticoagulant and put him on a helicopter and flew him off to Chattanooga, and left me standing there.
How scary.
Yeah, and so I ran home, picked up a few things, and then headed straight for the hospital. And he was not normal. I mean, our 2 children flew in. Our son lives in Maryland. He flew in. He recognized our son, but our daughter, who had just been at our house the weekend before, he didn't even know who she was. And so it was really, really scary. But he was in the hospital for 2 or 3 days, and then they released him. And they released him with home health care, a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, and a speech therapist.
Yes.
So what we found out is that he had a stroke to his left occipital lobe and to the very area where reading is processed. Everything else, praise the Lord, he could walk, he could talk, he could remember, he could think. Everything else was, after, he was a little bit better, then, all the remembering came back, and, he could recognize people and all that kind of thing.
How long was that recovery period from the time the stroke happened, working with all the therapists, to when he was mostly back to functioning?
That was just maybe 3 days, 3-4 days.
Wow.
Yeah, just
Okay.
a short time.
Great.
But we knew from the very beginning, because that was the presenting symptom, was can't read. And for him, he read every day, all day. He spent hours in the library, hours on his computer, all this kind of thing. Teaching, preaching. And if you don't read, you don't preach, you don't teach, you don't, you're just kind of by the side of the road.
Yeah.
And so.
What did that feel like for you when you went to try to read a book? What was it? What did it feel? Do you remember?
Oh, I saw all the letters, but what it meant, I had no idea. And trying, but nothing seemed to work.
Yeah.
And then they gave special ladies came from
Yeah, the
hospital
speech therapist came
and
and
tried
they
to,
started teaching him the ABCs again, but it's not like he could remember them, you know.
oh, I understood, and then the next moment, it was gone.
Wow.
Completely gone.
So when did you start seeking advice from, whether it was the speech therapist or your son-in-law neurologist, you know, about what is going on with reading?
Okay, so our son-in-law, you know, he knew exactly what was going. His particular problem is called alexia, which he cannot read. And something that's really important that I think was providential in our case was that we had a very sharp neurologist, nurse practitioner neurologist. And the first time we went in to see her, she says, I think you had an AFib, a clot, that you know, irregularity in the heart that threw a clot. And never seen this in any of his histories, but seeing a cardiologist, all this kind of thing, never seen it. She said, but you know what, you really need to get a loop recorder, which is inserted inside, and wear it for half a year. And he thought that was the most ridiculous thing. He says, I'm fine, I don't have any. But she and I prevailed upon him to get this loop recorder in. And sure enough, it was an AFib, atrial fibrillation. And when that happens, it can be a major problem to the brain or to the heart or to anywhere. But it was so infrequent, it was like once every 6 weeks, just a few beats. And so without the loop recorder, we wouldn't have known that. Plus, it told us that several times in the nights, he would just stop, his heart would stop beating for like 7 seconds. And so eventually he had a pacemaker put in. So I'm just saying all that to say that it's very important to listen to what the professionals are saying, because they've had a little experience, even though we don't think that could be right, but it was true.
Well, one of the things that I think is so amazing and interesting about you, and as part of the Seventh-day Adventist religion, is your health, your physical health, you know, and how your lifestyle, you know, to fully be who God made you to be, has to do with what you eat and your physical exercise. So you're very healthy people.
Yeah, and we've been vegan for years.
Yes.
You know, just years. And he was very faithful at it with his walks and all this kind of thing. So it's not that we were being reckless with our health. It just, like I say, this atrial fib can do a real number.
So when, going back to thinking about reading and losing the ability to read, when did you feel like we need to go seek our own resources? I think you were hearing.
Well, when people hear that you've had a problem, everybody comes with a solution. If you haven't realized that yet, you will if something happens. You know, everybody comes, well, my grandmother did this, or did all of these different things. We had a friend that called us, actually, and told us that he thought that we ought to explore hyperbaric oxygen treatment. Well, we had never heard of that, you know, but both of us love research, so immediately got on and started looking it up. And sure enough, hyperbaric oxygen treatment is very effectual as far as helping stroke recovery. And so it's a very long story, and I'll abbreviate it. So we started going to a local hyperbaric chamber right here in Chattanooga. We actually explored one in Florida, but it was mucho expensive. And they did the same protocol here as in Florida. And so
and they told me also in Florida the progress that we could make.
Yes, okay. In Florida, he had some testing done, and one of them was a SPECT scan, in which they scanned his whole brain in all colors. And here was this occipital, and it had this blue color around it, which was good potential. And the doctor there said, yes, you have good potential. He says, you'll never get back to scientific or difficult things, but he says, at least you'll be able to read a menu. Well, that wasn't exactly exciting to us, but we said, well, let's try, so.
There's hope.
Yeah, and that was huge. If he had said, sorry, it just looks really bad, there's no hope, then we would have not bothered with it.
But it was very, very helpful, even if it cost a lot. It cost $12,000 just to find out if you have any potential. But when they say there is potential, very, very small, but this is what we have to do.
But we didn't go down to their program. We stayed here and made up our own program. Well, we were going to this hyperbaric in Dayton at that time. They have one here now in Chattanooga. And there were other people that would come into different chambers, and you got to know everybody and talk on the sidelines. And this one woman, she says, may I talk to you? And she took us outside, took me outside, and she said, your husband doesn't read. And then she started explaining how her daughter didn't read, and that she had brought her to this place that she just has such a high regard for teaching reading and brain training, and that we really ought to think about it. Well, like I say, we're open to ideas, and so I think it was either the same day or the next day we trotted right down here.
You're very proactive.
Yeah, so we came right in here and started talking to y'all here. You weren't even here that day, and so we made an appointment to come and see you, and gave us good hope here. And so we said, well, let's give it a try. And it was, should I say, maybe a little humiliating to my husband to come in with all the kids, but you all were very sensitive to that and put him in a special room that wasn't so distracting to him. And so we've been here, a year and a half now, something like that. And at first, it wasn't, he didn't feel it was really helpful, but we just kept at it. And with all the different drills and all the things, the huge thing that you do here, let me just compare speech therapy and here, because we did do 3 months of speech therapy. And they're good at teaching everything, but you have a system of working on processing, speed processing, and processing speed that I don't think they ever thought of. If you want to take forever to look at something and talk, and so we knew that speech therapy, we actually had a whole another session of speech therapy set up, but then we came here and we said, let's try that other, because we'd already tried the speech therapy. And so, like I say, we came a long time, and things didn't seem to be super helpful. He could read little words here and there, but he forgot a lot. But then,
and normally they say, when you have a stroke, that after half a year, if there's no improvement, there will not be no improvement at all. But I knew that in Florida they said I could.
The potential was
potential is there, and so I continued to do it. And half a year, beyond Davy. And there was no significant progress. Yes, there was some progress, but not what I wanted.
I just want to say that the instructors here are so patient. He was humiliated, and it was hard for him, but he kept going. But your trainers were right there with him, encouraging him and pushing him. And then suddenly one night when we were having everything happens while we were having devotions. We were reading, and he looked at a title and he read it off completely. And it wasn't an easy thing. It was like hard Bible words, not like thus, Dick, Jane, and Sally, And he figured it all out. And I said, "How did you do that?" He says, "I don't know. I could just do it." And that's what happened. And we just praise God because we prayed so much, But suddenly it was like the door was open and he could actually remember and put things together. And it was just such an amazing miracle for us to go through.
And we still continue to do it. Now, let me tell you, they teach you here speed reading, the speed. But that I was not able to do. But in time, practice, and it went more and more powerful and whatever. And that, I think, is the tremendous contribution that you do this here. And, of course, I continued to do this instead of after half a year giving up, because at times I was saying, what does it do? I do it and I forget. So what is the use of it?
Right.
And until that thing, what she says, certainly there was a breakthrough.
Yes.
And was I not so persistent of going on and on and on and on and on, I would have walked out and I would have not.
And if we didn't have the blessing of the Lord just,
Yes.
we're just so incredibly
Okay,
grateful.
many people everywhere, they prayed for us,
Yes.
And then we didn't see any result until the day.
Yes.
Suddenly it went there.
It's amazing. Do you remember when that was, how much time had passed? I remember the email. It said, "Oh, ye of little faith," was the subject.
Yeah.
And you said, "Here we are just saying there's not a lot of improvement yet.
Well,
Look what just happened."
Well, and the weekend before, we were with our son-in-law, and he said, "Mom, I don't want you to
Be disappointed.
He says, "But I need to tell you what the actual facts are. After 6 months, it slows down, and after a year,
It stops.
yeah." He says, he didn't say stop, but it's very slow and very, very hard. And here we were going a year and a half, and so I shed a few tears. I don't know if I even told you that,
No.
because I didn't want you to be disappointed,
But then suddenly there was a breakthrough.
Yeah, it just happened, and the Lord just helped him start
It
reading.
must be divine intervention.
Yeah, and it's not like it was fluent at that. Even to this day, it's not fluent, and that's why we still come here, for the speed. But he can figure out words, and sometimes he figures them out wrong. It's not perfect, but it comes, and it's a miracle.
I agree. It's amazing. It's so inspiring, and this is where I think the faithful need to hear what keeping the faith. We know what
sure.
keeping the faith can do, but this is an incredible story, and I'm just grateful for you sharing it.
Well, we have to persist. We just have to keep going, and even when we don't see, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. He just kept doing it, and his whole life has been a life of persistence,
Yes.
you know. And he would study and study and study at home. He'd study at school. He'd study. You know, he was very faithful always in his research. So it was part of it.
Every day, a whole section of a commentary. I master. Slowly, it goes on and goes on.
Let me ask you a few questions I want to make sure we hit, and we'll be editing this and putting them together. One, I want you to talk about your book, because you said, I want to finish my book. That was a goal. Two, do you remember when that date was that it clicked? When was that suddenly? Was that 6 months into training? Was it 9
It's
months
more like a year and a half.
a year and a half into training?
I'm guessing.
He was making progress before that because you continued.
Yeah, but not a breakthrough. You
Yes,
know?
the breakthrough was
Yeah.
okay. I'll look and see when that email was
Yeah.
too. And then the other one I want to hear is for my benefit, so I remember what your son-in-law, neurologist, had to say about this, that he was able to make progress after the 6 months.
The family is thrilled, you know.
Of course
Yeah.
they are. But was he shocked? Because does he see that anywhere else, or is it just unlikely?
No, he didn't see it anywhere else, but in my case.
And he's very, very happy.
Yes.
But it's just such a miracle all the way around. But I just want to say to those who have had strokes, you're not hopeless. Don't let anybody tell you you're hopeless. You work and you do as much as you can. And, you know, from our experience, we are strong believers in hyperbaric oxygen therapy because we feel that prepared the brain to begin processing. And of course, we're not neurologists, but that's how we feel. And then take brain training and work hard at it. And we just pray you'll have the same results.
And do not give up.
Do not give up. Just keep working at it.
That's what, you know, when you get so discouraged, it's hard to not give up.
Yep, that's true.
And the times I have said, you know, what is the use? I mean, today I understand this, tomorrow it's gone. What is the use of it, you know, at times?
I remember.
But then, you know, she always encouraged, go on, go on, go on. And we call upon the Lord and go on.
What's it like been having someone like Laurel in your corner?
Oh, it was very encouraging. She never disappointed me. She always encouraging. And that was a very important thing, you know. Unless you have a team working on this, you may give up.
What do you think would happen if you didn't have Laurel to push you to do this training?
Oh, I would have given it up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But she really, and then travel every time here, you know.
An hour every time, hour drive here.
Yeah.
And also for the hyperbaric, it was a whole hour of driving. And we did that 5 days a week when we were doing the hyperbaric. Yeah. But we're glad here that we could do it remotely. That was very nice.
Very helpful. Tell me about your book, and if you don't mind to say, we had a goal at the beginning, a big, audacious goal to finish my book.
Yeah.
Can you say that though on the camera?
Yeah. I mean, I had finished it just before the stroke. You know.
Can you say I had finished my book? Because we're going to cut me out.
I had finished my book, but it still needed to have editing. And so we found an editor who is very, very good, but because he is so good, it's difficult to get his time. And so the progress of the book, the editing, went very, very slow. But with some other friends, we really worked on it, and for nearly two years. And we finished it completely. And it is now sent
to the publisher.
To the publisher.
It hasn't been accepted yet. That's our next prayer. We're
Yeah.
praying on that. However, this is a commentary on Daniel that goes clear back to the beginning of Christianity, even before Christianity, what different scholars believed on each verse. And so it's a very interesting book because it traces historicism from the very beginning. And
Now, presently you have a confusion of interpretations. Historicism, which is the most original, biblical one, and futurism, that sees all the prophecies in the past.
in the future.
No, futurism, yeah, in the future. And then Platonism, that sees all those things in the past. And then idealism, that makes it nice stories and whatever, but not real things. Well, historicism is what shows you what the Bible says and how it comes to pass.
In history.
In history.
Actually happening.
Actually happening. And so presently, then in all the confusing interpretation, that is the most solid interpretation and can be trusted because you have the evidence in history.
Yeah.
Whatever. And therefore but unfortunately, this has been discarded by many, many scholars and whatever. And so as a result, this is a kind of what do you call it?
A discarded, passé interpretation.
And it is the best and whatever.
And this is what your book is about?
Yes, yes.
So when was it completed?
It was completed
In October of 23. And then it's taken all the way up to just a couple weeks ago to
editing.
To all the editing.
Yes.
Plus our son is actually a video producer, but he worked with AI and has made gorgeous illustrations to go with it. And so
more than 40 illustrations he has come up with.
Wow.
And it is, you haven't seen anything like this. You go to many commentaries and there's a lot of words. But here you see then the fulfillment.
Wow.
and so he shows historical events like the Battle of Actium. He has the ancient Greek and Roman ships with the fire and all that. Plus he has different pictures of authors who were very significant, like Martin Luther or Calvin or Joachim of Fiore, or all these different people that he's talked about. So anyway, it's interesting, and like we await publication.
Yeah.
I can't wait to read it. What's it called?
It's a hard name. The historicist interpretation
Of the commentary of Daniel.
of the commentary, something like that. I don't know. I always have to look at it because it's so. Anyway, we call
I
it.
can't wait to read it.
And it took me about 10 years. And this was the subject that I was teaching at the university, Andrews University in Michigan.
Wow.
And I knew, because of many people have discarded this and whatever, and come to all kind of speculations, that this needs to be accomplished, because the other interpretations lead many people into deceptions. And Jesus says in the last days there will be great deceptions. And as a result, the speculations about Jesus coming are multiple, but confused, absolutely confused. And so this has been a great blessing, and I have been teaching this for many, many years, and I have seen the results and the impact of people, what it did, and the blessings that they receive, and the joy of the prophecies of Jesus, and that is important in the last days. What Jesus said, not what the scholars said, no, what Jesus said about his second coming. It's a fantastic event, and yet how many people speculate about Jesus coming.
Right.
Anyway, we're excited that it's finished and praying for the publisher.
Yes. It's
And you'll get
amazing.
another email if we hear.
I can't wait. Is there any other thoughts that you have or want to share? I think we've covered a lot. But is there anything else, just thinking of, I think the message of hope is what you're sharing. I think the message of faith is what you're sharing, and miracles.
Miracles happen. They do, even now.
And don't give up. Don't give up.
Persistence.
Persistence is very, very important.
Continuing on.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And now I'm dreaming of the sequel of this. That is the book of Revelation.
Yes, wow.
Because, Daniel and Revelation, they go together.
Yes.
And the key to the book of Revelation is the book of Daniel.
That's your next one.
Yeah.
Your next project.
Yeah, and we have been working on this.
That's amazing.
There is one thing that I'd like to say, and that is that we feel incredibly grateful to you all here and we've had a couple main trainers that have been so patient and so kind, and you've been so encouraging, and we just feel very, very grateful that God brought you into our lives.
Same.
Providence.
Yes.
And we can thank Jesus
Yes.
for the book
Yes.
and for you.
Yes.
Because if it was not for you, I would have given it up.
I think everyone has a purpose, and I think you're both doing yours, and I feel like I'm doing mine.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
just know it's
beautiful.
very much appreciated.
Good. Thank you.
So
Good.
for us, it is the glory belongs to God.
That's right.
Everything
That's
that we have accomplished,
Yes.
even the first book that I ever wrote, accomplished by God.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.